Hey friends, this is the quick lowdown. The rest of it isn't quick, it's very long. I've created a lot of videos in the last year of me talking to myself. Sound crazy? Well, it kind of is. And 6 years ago, I was labeled with a mental illness, bipolar disorder 1 with psychotic features. And I was told to believe a lot of different things about myself. So I decided to start talking to myself on video, and I didn't know what would happen. And turns out this process continued for an entire year. So I've created an entire year of me babbling on to myself about what I think about what's going on. And it kind of took on a life of its own. So now I have all of this content, if you want to call it that, and I don't know what the heck to do with it. And I'd like to share it with my friends who might resonate with some of it. And before watching the videos, I would ask, please don't take any of my advice, and please don't think that I'm trying to give anybody advice. I'm just talking to myself and seeing what happens. I invite you to talk to yourself and see what happens. I invite you to talk to me and reach out and see what happens. But there's no advice here saying, if you do this, this will happen. Besides, I'm not sure if this will resonate with anyone. I'm feeling it might resonate with people who get labeled with something like bipolar disorder and have a lot to say and nobody to say it to, and might be interested in seeing what happens when that is engaged with by means of talking to one's iPhone. And so one thing that I would ask, if anyone is at all interested in co-creating some of the things that I talk about with myself that I probably can't remember, it'd be helpful if you remind me. And also, if anyone wants to suggest titles for the videos or topics that I talk about, let me know in each video, or the clips that are most resonant. That way, maybe I can summarize it somehow, sometime. Also, I create a lot of words with myself, just for fun, and it feels helpful to create congruent words for myself. And if anyone wants to help me in creating a list of those words, to create a lexicon of sorts, that would be great. And also, if I mention any books or products or things, remind me. That way, maybe it can be turned into something that is somewhat helpful at some point. I don't know about the actual dialogue with myself. I also talk about lifestyle design. I talk about groups I want to create. I talk about a lot of stuff. So there's certain categories I feel, and if people would like to help me make it linear, because my brain works really well at creating lots of ideas and insights and meaning and context, but then I forget. So I have no idea what I'm doing, but I have created this thing that perhaps might be an invitation to some of my friends out there, some of my fellow neurotribees, to co-create something. Hello friends, I'm reaching out to you because I've been talking to myself for an entire year, and frankly, I'm tired of it. So I'm opening up the conversation. And I've said a lot to myself over the last year, and what I really want to say right now is, 1, please don't take anything that I say as advice. For one reason, what I say changes on a daily basis. For another reason, I forget most things that I say, and I don't necessarily do all that I say. And for another reason, this isn't medical advice. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a person with lived experience going through the mental health system, and I'm sharing from that perspective. And also, please take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm not speaking here in terms of facts, what's right and wrong, good and bad. It is completely subjective. It's a vulnerable conversation with myself where I speak openly and I'm wondering and I'm not really knowing what the heck I'm going to say, and I just say things. And I don't believe anything I say, and in that way, there's a lot to say. I'm speaking from wondering and creating lots of context, not the perspective of creating factual content. And you'll see what I mean if you watch some of this and as time goes on. What I will invite you to do, though, is share your feedback with me on what resonates and even what doesn't. This is an open conversation, and it's a conversation with myself in this. I'm just talking with myself. I'm not trying to persuade anyone or convince anyone of anything. It's just talking to myself and see what happens. And I didn't expect what has happened to happen, and that's going to keep happening. So I would say sign up for the mailing list because I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to share this. I might share the videos through YouTube, so I would need an email that is connected to your YouTube account. As well, I could share the Dropbox links to your email or send you the password to a private page through my blog. And the reason I'm doing this to start out is that I want to share initially with the people that this resonates with, and that's who it's for, is to have a conversation with people who get it. So if you don't get it, you're not going to waste your time watching it. And if you do get it, you might waste your time watching it. And if you are going to waste your time watching it, I would ask for some help. And the help I'm asking for, hello friends, I really want to share something with you. 6 years ago, I was labeled with a mental illness, a serious one, bipolar disorder 1 with psychotic features. And in the last year, I've been talking with myself on video and trying to figure out for myself what this means and unfold my own context. And the process took on a life of its own. And to start with, I'd like to share it with people who find this by synchronicity. If you're watching this, maybe you're meant to watch some of it and see what happens. I started talking to myself and it was just to see what happens. And I found that by talking with myself, certain things unfolded as going from being possible to actual. And it's an ongoing process and it's still ongoing. And so with that, I would say, please don't take anything that I say as advice because, one, I'm not a doctor. And please consult your doctor for any kind of medical advice. Two, what I say to myself changes on a daily basis, and you'll notice that. So I'm wondering, but I'm not necessarily talking to give advice. I'm wondering. I'm engaged in a process of dialogue with myself. It's not a process of goal setting, or it's not a process of action items. It's not a process of to-dos. It's wondering, and that's all. I do invite you to wonder. I invite you to wonder about yourself, your capacities, your gifts, what it all meant, what all that crazy altered state experience meant. And I do invite you to reach out and share with me what is resonant, what is dissonant. if there's anything you might want to talk about or co-create. And I have a lot of ideas around that, so I invite you to ask me if you are at all interested. Please realize that I don't remember most things that I've talked about with myself. I don't remember most things I say. And because I don't remember, I can say a lot. So I would request to focus on non-focusing, to suspend judging particular things that I say, and see that the process of seeing and saying and wondering unfolds life in new ways. Or maybe it's something else. I really don't know. I don't remember. I'd like to reach out and see what resonates. There are lots of things that are possible to co-create, and I'm not sure which bits I would like to move into co-creating. I see people like me as containing so much unmanifested potential, and I'm wondering if some of this might invite that out, or invite us to start having dialogue with each other in new ways. And the reason that I've spoken with myself so much on video is partly because when I was first diagnosed 6 years ago, I could barely see straight. I was on a lot of medication. I had to buy 3 different strengths of cheap reading glasses from dollar stores in order to read one medical form, depending on the time of day. And it was really a struggle to read, to focus, to concentrate. And in recent years, I've come across many great books sharing a lot of wonderful perspective, and that's when I realized I wasn't alone in how my heart had been feeling about some of these experiences in altered states of consciousness that were then labeled as a permanent, lifelong mental illness. So I've created a lot of video partly for people who may be in the early parts of their journey, and it's hard to focus, and it's hard to concentrate, and it's hard to read. And so hopefully that part is helpful. And this is a process that I created for myself by participating in this process. And I do understand that everyone's process looks differently. I'm sharing the process that I've utilized and I've felt was helpful, yet that doesn't necessarily translate to everybody. So I invite you to find your own unique process for wondering about yourself and rediscovering and recreating yourself and seeing yourself differently and thinking about yourself differently, which then makes other things happen in life. It translates into a different life trajectory unfolding. Maybe. It's hard to say. This isn't about results. It's about seeing and thinking differently. And when that happens, life unfolds in new ways. Maybe. And I say that from this point in time, a year later, but I didn't know what would happen if I gave myself the time of day to think in new ways and to think about old experiences in new ways, and not only the ways that I've been told to interpret them. It's not about my interpretations are the right ones. I've created thousands of possible interpretations for myself, and that's part of the fun of it, is creating lots of different interpretations and not getting stuck in any particular one. And then discovering that we have that power, we have that potential to create meaning for ourselves. And when we create meaning for ourselves, instead of relying on the meanings that we've been given through our entire life, what happens? Maybe something more meaningful. Maybe something according to the meanings that we've created. It's not about right and wrong. It's not about good and bad. It's not about reward and punishment. And this is difficult because I feel in my experience, being labeled with a serious mental illness feels like punishment for having perceptual experiences that are different than what is functional on a daily basis. So I felt it was important for me to engage myself in a way that is beyond that framework. I feel this has implications for learning, for neuroplasticity, for a lot of things that are in the forefront of conversation right now in science. Yet, people who are labeled with major mental illnesses are put in a category of being defective and deficient, not superhuman, super learners, or highly neuroplastic people. And so I invite you to let me know what you think. I invite you to sign up for my email list so that I can share this with you on a personal level by opening up a line of communication between us. And I'm curious about what will happen when we start talking to each other in new ways.